Really happy to have on the show now the New Zealand Pathways head coach, Kane Jury. Now, Kane leads everything from secondary schools all the way up through the under-20s, head coaches the under-20s, and works all the way up to working with the NPC coaches, the Super Rugby coaches, and the All Blacks coaches on trying to make sure that the pathways work and that young players are set up in every step to be ready, being professional footballers, and even being All Blacks, understanding what it is to win on and off the field and developing young players. So, without further ado, that was a good old intro. Kane, you're obviously in one of your roles right now, over in South Africa in Port Elizabeth, a couple of days out from coaching the New Zealand under-20s into the Rugby Championship. So let's start there, shall we? Thank you for joining the show. What does it look like there for your team? And, how are you getting these boys up who probably haven't spent, a lot of time together?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, gentlemen. Awesome to be finally invited on. We've had a really good preparation leading into this campaign. We have spent a bit of time together. Unfortunately, we didn't get a game against our Hurricane Hunters, but due to the weather, however, a lot of those boys still came in who could come in and help and tested us too as well. So, we understand the challenge of that, but also really excited about the talent we have in this group and how well they've connected on and off the field. Even ourselves had a really good little Anzac Day service together, then also connecting ourselves back into New Zealand too as well.
You look at, obviously, I suppose, the success, having won this championship last year and then obviously just falling short in the Junior World Cup. What have you, I suppose, drawn out of that in terms of your preview before starting this year?
I think what's really evident to us, and sometimes we get caught up on it a little bit, is everybody else's preparation, that length of preparation they've had. What we've shown, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years, is what we have been able to do is our culture, our connection has kept us tight and has allowed us to go and find opportunities to win games and then taking those opportunities too as well. So, for us, nothing really changes about that. So, recognising what everybody else has done. We've been in a very similar situation as them regarding that. And just looking forward to no excuses, really. Just go and play some footy.
You obviously had a lot of success in your previous role with the Highlanders, bringing together the Southland sort of age grade talent, the Otago age grade talent. And I suppose you had a unique ability to sort of bring that all under that sort of Highlanders banner, which isn't always the case in other super environments. I suppose that skill set of bringing multiple stakeholders together will be crucial in this new role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like what I recognise is we've got some great people in New Zealand rugby that we can always lean on and around that too as well. And I know, Dave Wren speaks really highly the importance of culture and connection. And I think our Māori, our Pacifica, and our European cultures, combined are really, really strong, and they've got great stories. And Kahurangi, who guides us, talks about how the water of the Moana connects us all, and recognising and understanding that. So somehow, in some way or form, our people, our great-grandfathers, grandmothers, etc., they've all somehow navigated the water to get to Aotearoa. That's something we've spoken about too as well. So, that's something which I think is really, really important to understand that. And when we have that type of understanding, connection, we start finding out more stories about who we are, what our families represent, stories from them. Then I feel like we become a lot more connected to rugby.
When fans come to watch the under-20s, I suppose year on year, most of the time you're learning a brand new set of players. You'll have a couple of people who get a couple of years in it, but is this team that you've got this year similar to last year's team at all, or is it quite a new bunch?
We've got a really good handful of about 6 or 7 players back from last year who actually, our very first thing that we did when everybody came in is they actually led the rest of the group and sort of gave them a bit of an understanding of what is coming and what to be ready for and what to prepare for. And that was great. Really got a really good group there too. Gave them a good understanding of what's coming ahead of us.
What kind of things are they talking? Are they talking more opposition and play, or the way that a team needs to work?
The grind of what we're going to get ourselves into. And what I really enjoyed was in Taupo, we put a a challenge out to all those 100 players around. We need, young, brave men to go overseas to represent our country, and being self-led, self-driven is critical. And we had really busy weeks, busy days. So how they planned, how they reflected was important too as well. So learning that from Taupo and coming into here, and every night we've got a journal, we're journaling, we're reflecting, and now little groups are starting to form together and starting to do that together too as well. So, that's sort of where they were going to with that. The opposition with the opposition, but we need to look after ourselves first. Different food, being in the same room with somebody else who maybe snores. I'm used to a queen king size bed. Now I've got a single, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much that we need. And then even just being together for this amount of time is challenging too as well. So it's understanding that. And we didn't even kick the ball around yet, or chuck the ball around.
Sort of going back in time when I was sort of trialling for the under-21s, is sort of coming together as one big group rather than turning up in those super under-20 environments. You've had experience with the Landers in that 20s environment. You've now had experience of the Taupo. Is there much difference?
Yeah, I think both of them have got some really awesome pros about them, and what I really enjoyed this year about it was the ability for our young guys to actually just meet some new people too from different provinces and different Super Rugby regions. And what that certainly did for us, even coming in together with this group, is that there was some formed relationships already too as well. Now, a huge pro and around the Super 20s is that we actually get to spend an amount of time and really coach them around some positional work too as well. And I think that's a massive positive. The positive with us and Taupo around the rugby was you had to keep it simple. And I feel like, particularly the young people these days, is that we've got this great talent, and every time we layer in our structure, our process, it can sometimes just take a little bit of that talent away, which we love when we get to unstructure too as well. So I'm really mindful of that. So Taupo allowed us to keep it simple so they can go and play some footy.
Cohesion is something we always talk about on the show around Super Rugby teams. That the slightest change in a midfield or at the back can create a lot of difference in the result because of that lack of cohesion and understanding. When you're in a system like this, how much of it is, finding a squad and giving them a crack for 3 games in the Rugby Championship to develop that, and how much of it is going, actually, I'm not sure who the best fullback is, and I need you both to have a shot for the development of this team before the World Cup?
So that's critical for us, because a question mark for us right at the moment too is we actually don't know where our game is at the moment, if I've been completely honest, because we haven't been able to have a good hit out against somebody who doesn't know what we're doing. And so our ability over this champion, the TRC, is ensuring that we get a really good understanding of the players within this group, and then who does form the best combinations as loose forward trios, a midfield, as a back 3 group, and that's what we'll find out.
Are you thinking, okay, well, that's essentially making this Rugby Championship a build-up to the World Cup, and you have to think about it that way? The goal isn't necessarily, well, while the goal is there to take the trophy home, the bigger picture is not that.
Yeah, correct. And I think, like anything, right? If we actually own our own job and we're having awesome conversations, many conversations, the lads have been right into the laptops, and if I get that little bit right, then I think the outcome will take care of itself. And I know we hear that a lot, but I know what's really important, particularly as they move forward into being a professional player with their provincial union, with their Super Rugby, looking after themselves and then sticking to their role is really important.
If you look at, I suppose, the history, and look, I am a bit of a cheerleader for Super Rugby because I do think it's one of the best comps in the world. But if you look at the breakthrough players over the last 5 years, 4 of them have been All Blacks and 1 Italian, which was Kopawatsu. And you've got Holland, you've got Satiti, you've got Will Jordan and Mark Talea. Our pathways are in pretty good way in terms of leading them up to have that ability to step into Super Rugby, but then Super Rugby preparing them for that international stage.
Yeah. We've got some great coaches. We've got some great coaches from the youth all the way through into the professional level too as well. And I feel if we keep looking after and we keep caring for our youth coaches, we keep providing them support, then they're going to come through. And if we can provide that right support, then I think we're going to continue. We're always going to have the talent here. I've no doubt about that. And I think we're going to continue having World Breakthrough Players of the Year too as well. But I think there's some awesome people out there that guide our young people to get to that point.
And what I'm hearing a lot from you is probably like, man, if you can just own your own space, you guys actually back your coaching to do the tech. You know, like so much of it is, I suppose 90% of it is what players do away from your eyesight. That sets them up for the ability to be coached. And I suppose that in the pathway, learning that from an early stage and you guys instilling that, whether it works out in trophies at this level, people do get fixated, I suppose, on that history of the under-20s and us winning the World Cup, and it's like this glorified, but actually learning that skill set and maybe having failure sets them up, you know, better to know that, you know, this isn't an easy road. Professional sport is ruthless.
I think the one thing I've been trying to tell the boys, they're probably sick of hearing it now, is, you know, there's no growth from comfort. And we've got to have edge. And edge means not being perfect, but chasing that.
Yeah.
I just firmly believe, like, when we talk about like our Anzac we service yesterday, is the guys and the people that went over to, you know, fight for us in the Commonwealth, really different to us who represent our country and our friends and our family. They had that too as well, but theirs was a little bit different to ours. And, you know, being able to recognize that part, I thought was really, really important, particularly when we're overseas here too as well. And we'll get comfort in and around owning our own space, as you mentioned, Chip, but also the little conversations that they're starting to build now. And I can feel those little conversations with coaches and the little mini groups is the trust. And when we get that on the field, then, you know, I think then we're cooking with fire.
What do you think about the rugby IQ? Because we hear a lot about secondary school, and obviously one of your jobs is to coach that secondary school side. And we hear a lot about the professional nature, the amount of time they spend in the gym, the amount of time they spend learning and playing rugby. How is that IQ from what you see? When you get a hold of them at an under-20 level, are they in a place where you feel that maybe previous generations weren't?
What makes New Zealand rugby really special is our ability to play with feel. And we can know all the X's and O's and the ABCs and all the steps, which are important. But ultimately, what we're trying to do within our game is get away from all that. So we've got unstructured, so we can go and chase the game. And I feel like the more we can get into that space, I feel we're going to get really good players moving forward. You know, the structured to the unstructured. Even if I talk about like attack shape, us probably growing up as young people, we always talked about like ball carrier must have support outside, inside, and behind. You know, like that little diamond. That's no different to when guys play the 1-3-3-1, or, you know, like it's no different. But somehow people that support, but somehow everyone goes, "Oh, we've got to get away from 1-3-3-1 and get into something else." It's like, well, just why don't we just play some footy and support like that, and so then we can play heads up. Because I think our ability to get, well, what Kiwis are really good at, I always believe, was getting one-on-ones. So whether it was our big ball carriers getting one-on-ones, tipping them in, hooking out, our back three getting one-on-ones, that's where I think we do really special work and trying to get our young guys to understand, as much as we want clear space that you can just cruise into, man, we're good at using footwork, we're good at support, we're good at offloading the ball. So let's just get into those scenarios. So we're chasing a unicorn to a certain degree because defenses are so good these days, but, you know, one-on-one becomes, well, my ball carry versus your tackle technique.
Speaking of unicorns, any hybrid players coming through? We just saw a winger centre play at 7 for 80 minutes to the Crusaders and Leicester Whainganuku. What's your take on that?
I think moving forward in the game, you know, hybrid player could potentially be really important, particularly when you want them to go for a 6-2 split on the bench as well. You know, our national talent development ID manager, PJ Williams, you know, he's always talking about, well, who's our hybrid player? And I think within our group, you know, who could be our hybrid player? I think there's a Mike Farley, but it's got to build. Yeah, exactly. Well, so that's something we haven't really considered to move him into that space yet, but if we're going to try and identify young players like that for the future and for our professional game, then, there's one player there too as well.
Do you want to talk about who Mike Farley is for people who don't know him? Like, what does he bring to the table and where?
Yeah, so Mike Farley was he was a Hamilton boy playing for Waikato. This is his second year in the team. He's a player that can play 6, 7, and 8, so can cover all three. Power athlete. Also played New Zealand under-18 sevens. Just has the ability to break a line, be a game breaker too as well, and change the course of the game. So he's a guy you could put on the wing, put on the midfield.
He's similar, I think, like probably I'm being biased just because I spent a lot of time with this player, but a little bit like Aotearoa Rugby. Like he is an out-and-out Lucy, but he has that explosive pace that he would not look out of place on the wing.
Yeah.
And I suppose utilising him on the edge, in attack, and if you don't have a lot of footage on him, he could be extremely lethal. But I think, like, you know what it's like when you're a kid? It's like play all the sports. And if we're genuine about a hybrid player, the time to actually trial it is probably at school or at the younger grades before, I suppose, under the ruthless eye of professional sport and everyone critiquing Leicester as a genuine 7 versus, I suppose, doing it not in that spotlight.
100%. And what have we got to lose? Yeah. I guess is the question in the space here too as well, and trying to look at it as a bigger picture for our game. It's interesting you talk about, the players or the young ones who play different sports. What's really critical. The other thing actually potentially which we don't do as much of now are the incidental learning and playing, which was going around knocking on the door. Oh, is James there, Mrs. Parsons? And yeah, Jane, we're going to go and play a game of touch on the footy, or I'm going to go and play force back. And all that incidental learning was, because the whole time when you play with your mates was like, how am I going to go chip and chase to beat him? How am I going to grab it through? How am I going to put on an awesome step to go and beat him? How am I going to, so all that incidental learning happened through our mates and going down the park and again playing force back to try and drill him down to that corner, or he's a bit slow there, so I'm going to go get him here, and I'm going to make that kick a little bit lower, make it bounce. So we had all this incidental learning, which potentially doesn't happen as often as it used to as well. So, when they have got other young people growing up these days who at a young age are playing basketball, playing volleyball, playing cricket, etc., netball, that certainly helps the ability to be a really awesome sportsman. And again, talking about the feel of the game, the spatial awareness too as well, it can give us a lot.
How do you, I suppose, plan for leadership as well? Like leadership's such a big part of the professional game around staying composed under pressure, building your teammates up when there's mistakes, but you're dealing with, I suppose, young men that are maturing and understanding themselves, let alone being able to lead others. How do you navigate that space? Because I can't imagine it's easy.
And it probably shouldn't be easy, to be fair to as well, because if we said to them it was easy, then they'll get it. John Quinn, who's on to us, is unreal. He was great with our young people, and just the basics that he gives our young guys, particularly around being present and trying to win the next moment. We spoke about, even just the breathing part, really important. Imagery to help solidify what you know to as well. So ability to walk through scenarios, to see first person, third person. We've spoken about that in this space here too as well. One thing I've learned around neurolinguistics is that your brain doesn't know the difference between mental rehearsal and physical rehearsal too as well. So we really want to keep encouraging that. And I think probably the most important thing is understanding that this little bit of pressure here is going to always happen. It's going to come, and you've got to decide on how am I going to be world class next, because we can go and influence the game really, really quick and be world class, be game changing. And the example I always use is imagine an opening batter in cricket and second ball, bang, out. So what does he do for the rest of the day? well, I'm in the stands for the next X amount of hours, and then I'm fielding. And actually, the reason why I'm in the team as a batter, of I'm now gone. I don't get a second chance. So, like, it might be a knock on the ball. I get a chance to influence the game again, whereas a batter doesn't. So that's why our game got 80 minutes of win the next moment, apply pressure, um, regardless of what happens.
You're giving me PTSD. I don't have to imagine that scenario. I've sat through days, days of that.
Ross loves his cricket.
It doesn't always work out for you. One of the things you talked about as far as the development of these players, and especially with players coming through these age group ranks, is that, we saw Kunuwave play for the Crusaders on the weekend. He's a young fella, and as a winger, you can easily slot into a Super Rugby team. You're bringing something new. They're All Blacks at 19 years old on the wing. There are other positions in the team that take longer. So how do you approach that? Because the players obviously have to understand that. They have to understand that they can't look at the guy next to him knowing that he's going to be in the sevens team, then playing Super Rugby next year, and it might be 3 years of club footy and a little bit of NPC before the prop gets his chance.
Nothing wrong with that.
But what I think what's really important for our young people is, and it's like any type of development in any space, like what's required at the next level. And if we can try and put them at the coal face of that in a safe way, and have a really good understanding of, well, this is what's important to be ready to prepare, and then you got to find your way. And alongside we might not quite get it right, but then you'll adjust and you'll get to go again. And that goes across, again, all the off-field stuff too as well. So if they have an understanding of the environments that they're going to be going into, which is probably my role for them to understand that, then the sooner they can make the adjustments, make the changes, or keep going in their own personal plan too as well. It's funny because I find like, just how they finish school, and it's like, boys, you're back at school again. You're constantly being assessed. You've got to get across your homework. You're being challenged. Like, you don't leave school. So you've got to be a really good learner, a learner that can do it in a variety of ways. That's where I think our young guys, the sooner they get a hold of that, then the sooner they understand their ability to go and influence the provincial union and or Super Rugby club. The other one too is actually just being prepared that these guys here have been, most of them have all been coming through. They've all they've been starting. They've been the top dog, and then where they sit when they get into an NPC place or NPC team. It's probably going to be in the non-23s. You've got to learn to be an awesome non-23 person, and then when you're in Super Rugby, you're probably there for about 2-3 years before you even get your start. And so actually learning about your week to help best prepare yourself and then the team is going to be really important moving forward too as well.
You look at it as well, like, I reckon, like, if you see the young players that kick on the most, is they actually understand failures about getting to where they want to get to. And by that I mean is, like, you mentioned that word safety, like coming into an environment, it's actually safe to fail, like, because that's how you push the envelope, that's how you innovate. But sometimes, as a young man, and you've come from being the top dog and not used to sort of, I suppose, being highlighted in reviews and so forth, actually having the maturity to understand and deal with that is a massive shift. And I think the ones that connect onto that and put their hand up and go, yeah, no, okay, I'll learn from that and I'll make a change, they always progress quicker because they're in that coachable mindset. Whereas I suppose sometimes you see the big superstars that don't kick on, they have that fear of admitting fault or failure, and it almost holds them back in their development.
No, absolutely. And I think that goes all the way back to, again, growth doesn't come from comfort. And, if they're constantly reflecting, having a plan at the start of the day, and then they're constantly reflecting, then I feel like there's a lot more clarity on what they need to do to move forward, and they don't hold on to it. So even the ability just to write something. We've got journals at the moment, so being able to write something in your own way. You don't need to write the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You can just write statements, but it just allows, when it's written down on a bit of paper, I feel like the commitment, the ability to move on is a lot stronger versus it just hanging in the mind, taking up that space. It doesn't need to take up that space. And again, just the most important thing is what you do next.
That's interesting. I mean, for you as a coach, you might be the first person to never select this particular person. They've been told they're going to be in All Black from the time they're 6. And you as a coach have to be the first person to say, you're not playing. That's a bit of a predicament to be in.
Well, funnily enough, like we spoke about this, and normally you talk to a young person who doesn't make the team. Well, we didn't do that. We just named our 23, and then we got to the guys afterwards because I wanted to create edge, excitement. Am I going to be named? Well, I think that's a great moment. We don't get too many surprises as well, and I think that's a really important part of resilience. So if you don't make the 23, then it's like, okay, live with a bit of disappointment, have that, hang on to that, but then I've got a job to do. My job to do now is prepare the team. And if you understand that really early in your career, then I think you'll have a really long career too as well. Yes, take the disappointment. It's part of it. That's all good, and you can feel that. But then also let's move on. So then how do I go and be the best person to help prepare the team too as well? And I worked a lot with the non-23 players at the Highlanders too as well. And there were some really highly motivated non-23 players just to go and get a job done to best prepare their team. And sometimes I do actually more work than the guys in the 23 tour as well. So, we will talk to our guys as we probably go deeper into our campaign tour as well. When we think it's needed. But I love that little bit about selection. Just keeps them on the edge of their seat. Am I going to be in or not? And then there's a resilience piece in there.
And you must, I mean, you don't forget the players that go, if I use myself as an example, you don't make the top 23 and you're playing the Hurricanes, and my mind then comes to you and go, okay, what do I need to be Dane Coles to best prepare the 23 versus me coming up to you and going, oh, why didn't I make it, and where do I need to improve? Like both are good responses, don't get me wrong, but you almost want them to flick into, okay, how can I help the team? Then I'll get to my work-ons. And it's quite a big shift, and it's something that I was very poor at young. I was just like, right, I'm going to train the house down as the non-23, but I knew the calls. So then you could react early and you'd do things that were actually counterintuitive to preparing the team. So I think that, man, that mental maturity, the sooner you can grasp that, you will have a long career, because head coaches don't forget. They're like, oh, he's a contributor. He still wants to be the best. He still wants to be selected. It still hurt, but now he's still wanting the team to win.
I never played professional rugby, and being involved in that, like, best job in the world. Like, you dream about being in these positions, and you dream about being in the 20s, or being a Blues, a Chiefs, a Turbo, a Magpie. You dream of it as a young person. Now you're there. So now you're there. What do you do now with it? And now I'll just go be the best person I can be in our environment, because I've got the best job in the world, which doesn't last very long too as well. So I always think of that as that's critical. Just even understand that no place I'd rather be, and I've told the boys that right now, no place I'd rather be than being in this space here. And they've earned that. Like, that wasn't through luck; it was through everything they've done, all the people around them, to get to this point. So now let's just roll up our sleeves and go to work and enjoy everything about this group and this team.
Let's talk maybe a little bit your pathway to where you are then, because we hear a lot about former players coming in and becoming coaches and going through the assistant coaching ranks and making their way up. You've not taken that journey. How did you get to here, and why did you want to get to here? What led you into this coaching space, particularly for young people?
I'm a trained primary school teacher, so I've had that's been my bread and butter when I first left school. I actually know when I first left school, I was a part-time baker at Baker's Delight in Brisbane, and that sort of changed my teaming. And so the education and the willingness to help, I think, is just probably part of my character. And then my first coaching role was with the Otago Girls High School first 15, and then when I finished playing, I guess you could call it rugby. I don't know if I really played rugby or not. I don't know if you call it that, but after playing rugby, that I wanted to get into coaching. And then when I was in Hong Kong, got to coach a national under-14 team. And that over the space of 10 years, went into some national men's, national women's, 7s and 15s. Our 7s program had just turned professional. So I got to be part of that too as well. I was national player development manager, coach educator. I really wanted to come back from Hong Kong being ready for an academy manager role. And so we came back to Dunedin, director of rugby at King's High School, did some Otago Sevens, Otago women's rugby, so Otago Spirit, and just sort of club rugby. Even at King's High School, I did 1 year coaching the first 15, and then got some great people around to coach the first 15, and then I moved into the under 14, under 15 space. And then when an opportunity came to fill in before Ricky Flutie came in at the Highlanders as skills coach, I did that. Aaron Major got to know me. Aaron Major worked really hard within the Highlanders to create a talent development manager role. I went across to Fiji Sevens, enjoyed that, came back, got that role, and then just got stuck in and around the talent development space too as well. And then even then, I still gave back and coached Otago Spirit while I was in that role at one stage in Highlander 20s. And Jamie allowed me to go and coach Otago NPC. I just sort of, even last year, I coached Metro, Dunedin Metro under 16s at the South Island tournament. So I just feel like my breadth of coaching 7s, 15s, national, international clubs, schools has allowed me to form ideas, thoughts, innovation moving forward too as well. So I've got all this in my mind to take on a role like this.
I suppose, how hard is it though? Like, because you do look at, I suppose, the biggest hurdle for ex-players that they have to come across is the ability to teach. Like, they can do. The do is actually easy for the player. The teaching, like everything that we speak about these players being patient in the pathway, but that coaching pathway, listen to how many roles you've had to get to this role. Like that patience and that, I mean, I just get the feeling there, just as you just want to teach. Like, yes, it's rugby coaching, but that sort of teaching background is the heart and soul of how you end up here.
Yeah, and like nothing better than seeing a young person who you've been a part of, whether it's good or bad, because you might have done something bad, which is been able to help change the course they maybe of their thinking, or maybe what not to do. But I feel like the influencing young people is something I really, really enjoy. And then again, when this role come up, it was something that genuinely excited me. Made me a little bit nervous too, and around leaving a Super Rugby environment. Like, again, given an opportunity to be an assistant coach with Jamie, massively grateful for that. And it's like, man, do I step away from a dream of coaching Super Rugby to then move into this space? And I guess the role entails is creating All Blacks to win the next World Cup. That's something which gives me goosebumps and makes me massively motivated to move forward to help develop these young people. It was funny because when I actually gave if I was going to be open and honest, when I gave my why with the team in our changing room, got really emotional, which I'd never really done before in front of people, even in front of my family. So that probably shows you how much it meant to me to be in this role.
Oh, you're giving me tingles. I'm ready to watch. I'm ready to watch this team rock and roll.
So you mentioned that development of with getting people into the All Blacks. How do you work as the Pathways coach with the national selectors and the national coach in order to make sure that those people are prepped in the way that suits the system?
I've already sent a couple of messages to Renz already, and he's been receptive and quick to get back to as well. So really looking forward to him to come back across, and so we can get to have a really good understanding of what's really important to us to move forward. And by us, I do mean from secondary school level all the way through, because and even at secondary school level, we've got 3 national teams with New Zealand schools, bars under 18s, and New Zealand Māori under 18s. So how good is that? So how can I help influence that space? So then the space I'm in right now is really competitive. and then they can then be competitive and fight for spots in provincial unions. And if they're provincial unions, then they're going to be looked at a Super Rugby club, and that for us has got to be really important moving forward with those types of conversations. I mean, Jason Ryan coming in was awesome. Even this morning, I think he, or the last couple of days, he's connected in with Will Henry, our forwards coach. So I can see the real hunger and interest from the coaches already to be part of our space. And I think that's going to create awesome alignment. But I think probably more importantly, some really consistent messages from the top down. And again, that is a big part of my role too as well.
And how do you do that from a teenager's point of view? I mean, you don't want to be throwing the world or telling them too much about it, but you obviously might see a special talent and think we need to nurture this in a special way. How do you balance those elements when they're just kids?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably the most important thing first is understanding that they are a young person, and that the more balance they have in around rugby, the better rugby player they're going to be, or the better person they're going to be within that environment. So that stuff outside of footy. So are they chasing to be an electrician? Is it becoming a teacher? Is it becoming a doctor? Whatever it is that they want to do, that's got to be the stuff which needs to have a lot of attention and focus so they can be a good rugby player, because rugby is something that they really enjoy at the moment, but it can't be their everything, and they need to understand that really, really early. So have that focus outside, but also too, I guess, again, we're talking about them being young people. They need to understand the ups and downs of being a young person. I know it's strange, but like when they start getting partners and whatnot, the difference between you breaking up with a partner or a partner breaking up with you is two completely different things. And even just dealing with that as a young person, like, I know it's strange to talk about, but that's what they're gonna have to go through, right? Like, it's and that's all laced in, and that does affect your ability to train well, to have good conversations, to open up, et cetera, et cetera. So I think with any type of special young talent is to ensure they understand their opportunities to move forward. Nothing's guaranteed, but then outside those opportunities, from a rugby perspective as well, how you growing yourself to then, look after life after rugby.
It's that willingness to learn as well. I just have a firm belief, like, actually, it doesn't matter what it is, whether you're an electrician, you're going to university, or you're becoming a butcher. Your thirst for learning and like honing your craft, rugby and whatever else it is, will ultimately make you a better rugby player. Like, people have no idea how complex game plans are, how complex lineouts are. They change every week. There's so much review. There's so much video. Like, your ability to absorb information and execute under pressure is tenfold better if you commit at school. And I'm not doing like a public preach here to say, you've got to be ripping to your school, but the best players normally are the Ducks. Like, that's reality, and they're normally the captain, that's like, that thirst in that area also doesn't compact your identity. So like, if you don't make a team, or it builds the resilience in the sense that, okay, all my eggs aren't in one basket. I've gone off track here, but I just think that was a really powerful message, what you just said there around that outside of footy at that age group, setting yourself up for success. If you do it at this age group, you actually can then focus fully on being a professional rugby player when you get there, versus trying to catch your tail as such when you're 28, 29, because you've just committed everything to rugby.
Trying to get a young person to understand it's so challenging, though, age up. Like, that's it's because this is in their eyesight, or the part of it already, and everything I've dreamt of doing or becoming, I've achieved it. I've got there. And that's all they want to sort of focus on. But as they get a bit older, they'll start understanding that, man, this is absorbing. This cannot take up my headspace the whole day, and if I allow it, then the game will consume me. I know people talk a lot about obsession versus passion. Some people talk about you must be obsessed with the game. I don't know about that, because obsessive behavior can lead to some really dangerous, well, not dangerous, but some really strong thoughts to and around, and how it shapes you as a person, and how you're seen in the public eye. But if you're passionate about rugby, then there's your passion. But then what else are you passionate about too as well? And then you can be able to sort of what do you say? You can move yourself away from footy and focus on the other things, whether it's getting in the surf, whether it's mountain biking, whether it's going for a walk or whatever, walking the dog. Sometimes that can be good fun too as well. But, yeah, that growth mindset is critical in our space. No doubt about that.
Because I see the differentiation between passion and obsession. Like obsession, I reckon you're closed-minded because you're like, this is the way to do it. I've looked at every angle possible, and this is the way. Speaking from a bit of experience here, this is the way to do it. But actually, when you realize it's just your passion, you have an open mind to other thoughts, and you're almost more curious versus this is the one path I'm going to take, and it's my way or the highway. And it was as you say, it's hard for a young person. I had very strong parents, so I was fortunate, but I was that obsessed, and this is what I want to do. And it was actually until I transitioned over to the passion and not making that everything, I actually saw rugby in a different way, but I also saw my ability to grow and improve in a different way. I used to see like, my DNA doesn't allow that, so that's just not possible, versus the visualization. Actually, why can't you chip and chase a winger? And you actually seen in your head, it becomes automated, then you just do it, and you're like, you haven't really trained it, but you have in your brain.
Did you just do it?
Yeah, I just did it then. I just chipped and chased you in a Blues jersey. But yeah, I just think, we're getting slightly off topic, but I think that is a really key lesson, and unfortunately you have to learn it yourself. We can all sit here and tell the next Richie McCaw, but they're going to have some slip-ups to get there.
The willingness to learn, the willingness to go, actually, how I'm doing it is a little bit wrong. I need to just slightly adjust here. That's okay. And even as a coach, I'm, you're learning that, like, I'm sure this is the right way. And then I've got some great people around me with Brock James, Jimmy Lynch's, and Will Henry. And, they really make you think about their game through their experiences. Like having those people around our young group of men is awesome. They've got different views of the game, different deliveries, and then we've got experience management around us too as well. Really good physio, a really good S&C who's been, with the Crusaders Academy, moving them forward in that space too as well. So, I feel we've got a really strong team here who can form opinions, who have all got a growth mindset, and I reckon that's what's also, we're pushing that onto our players too as well. Even that little conversation, just having those little conversations to a young person about them, not rugby, not a line out, not a scrum, not a backs move, just how's everything at home? Have you caught up on that paper yet? Have you got anything coming up? Why did you cheat us in that mini team game where we scored? We actually had 34 right, not 28. Those types of human types of conversations and care and just care and have a bit of a joke with them is really important. That's actually the art of coaching, right? As well.
Well, one, it's very obvious you take your responsibility very seriously and you put a lot of thought into how to do it with these guys. It feels like when you're taking a team full of young men like that who are still discovering life, are still discovering who they are, you have to coach life as much as you have to coach the sport in some way.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Like we've got 4 values within our team, and we've got black standards within it. Black standards are the behavioural stuff for that value. They've come up with that, and then what we're trying to do every day is try and live those black standards, acknowledge it. We're a taonga, which is given to somebody who represents that value. So he's the kaitiaki of the day, and then he passes it on the next day. And everything, and some of the talks I've had with the boys, we're not talking about just rugby. We're talking about life, and we're talking about that pressure moment and what can we actually do about it. But that's just not in footy. you know, you make a mistake, it's about what's important, what you do next, and that's not just rugby, it's everything outside of it too as well. So we're trying to relay those types of messages.
Just to go back to the training paddock, you're coming up against Australia, Argentina, South Africa. I'm assuming that they're in a similar position with some fresh players and a tough chance to scout. How do you approach them as far as understanding their game plans and understanding what they're going to do in comparison to what you're going to do? Is that even relevant?
Not for us, because we're just going to control our behaviours and our intent and what we do. That's all we can do. And then we go and test it against them. I believe our game is really simple. We've kept it simple. We've kept roles really simple to then get us into playing some heads-up footy, being really aware what's in front of us so we can be on and then execute too as well. I firmly believe that we need to love unpredictability. So strange pitches that come at us defensively, or them them putting a different strike in. It just tests what we've installed and around their roles within to be effective in a defence system or from an attack perspective too as well. A game's got to feed off unpredictability, because that's ultimately where we want to be going to play the game, so we can get feel. So I'm not really worried about who we're coming up against. I'm also worried about our ability just to work hard in this space. And we know it's a physical game too as well, right? So you get the physical part of the game right too, it takes cares probably of 80% of the game.
Agreed.
Okay, well, we've got a World Cup as well coming up in June. So, what are I suppose, the biggest challenges for you heading into that World Cup? What do you need to do between now and then in order to be prepared to hopefully go that one better than it was against South Africa last year?
I think what's really important is our players getting a good understanding of the flow of our training block too. I think that's a really good start. So they understand what day 1, day 2 looks like, what our day 4 looks like. So they get a feel of that rhythm. What's important right now is understanding, we just had to adjust to a different time zone, again, a different environment, different food, having to get on a bus, having to live together. I think we need to have a really deep understanding of that. And then I think outside of that, from a rugby perspective, we need to have a deep understanding of what's really important for us that makes a difference and impact within the game. And then how do we just stay there or grow it or innovate within it. We then need to understand maybe 1 or 2 things within a game we need to put time and energy into so we can be more accurate as well. So we'll find that out in these next sort of 3 games. The other important one too is we've got some really good players at home that we're keeping a close eye on too as well. So when it comes to reselecting this group, that we not only have this group fit and available to be selected, that there's also a group of probably 15 to 18 others that we want to track really, really closely for when we reselect.
It sounds like plenty to do. Plenty to do. Well, good luck. Thank you for all your time, and I hope it goes really well against Argentina.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, and it's been a pleasure talking.
That makes a lot of sense, to have a position like that and a coach whose job it is to think about the secondary school players into the under-20s, all the way up to talking with the All Blacks coach about what it is that needs to be achieved by the young guys in order to reach the thing that he wants within game plans and as players.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at all sorts of studies or performance frameworks, trust is the cornerstone. I think having a consistent voice across that pathway system, coming out of secondary school into the under-20s, then almost letting them go once hitting that professional environment it's just exciting for the players, I think, for parents, and understanding that, how authentic he was around, we're actually growing the whole person. We're not just all rugby, and in fact, all rugby is a problem. We want to find another passion where you can switch off from rugby and then dedicate your skill set that makes you a good rugby player because you're a hard worker, you're disciplined, putting into something that sets you up for life after rugby. And look, I'm a big believer in this, but just purely because man, it goes so quick, and then you're not on your own. But if you're not ready, even like for someone that was ready and had degrees behind them and had created opportunity, it's hard. You know, coming out of rugby and you're almost starting again. You're in the academy phase, and if you don't prepare yourself mentally for that, or you haven't set yourself up to be able to deal with that, it makes it challenging. And we're seeing those challenges with players retiring. So this role, an authentic voice, someone who role models not trying to be perfect, and that consistency of voice and connection, building that trust with our young men throughout this pathway, I just think it's, seriously exciting. And you can see he's also a guy that's going to get everyone on board. Like he's open-minded, he's curious himself. So it's not his way or the highway. He'll connect well with super clubs, provincial unions. I don't know. I was really excited off the back of that. I thought it was really special.
It's, I suppose cynics would say, hey, this is all about winning. This is all about winning a title this year, etc. But
I don't think it is.
But he said that it's not all about that. But also you get the feeling that if you put the time into the individuals in a more personal way, maybe they will be in a better position to win the whole thing.
It's about the All Blacks winning. Like, let's be honest, and Super Rugby teams winning, the New Zealand Super Rugby sides winning. Like, if you win a title, they're great. If you don't, I'll say again, the last 5 years, we've had 4 of the breakthrough players in World Rugby that have come through the pathway system. I think under this model, it might be 5 from 5. You know, not being arrogant, but it literally is setting us up for test match footy.
Yeah.
Consistent high performers at test match footy. And it's a shout out to Super Rugby as well. You know, this pathway leads to them excelling at Super Rugby and then excelling at test match footy. I don't know, I'm buzzing after that. I thought it was really, really great chat, but just an honest chat.
Yeah.
No cliches. You know, it was great.